I'm Allendale's chief meteorologist Ryan Martin with a look at your midday weather update. Surface analysis across the U.S. right now shows high pressure trying to nose in to the upper Great Lakes region. Thing is, we still have a cool front pushing in across the northern plains and into the upper Midwest. That's going to, I think, damage the high pressure push in at least immediately. It also means that we're going to be keeping track of another push of cooler air in across the country. So even though it looks like we're having a drier window that's trying to work in across the Corn Belt, temperatures still are below normal. Now, when we say below normal, we're talking 2, 3 to 7 degrees below normal. Nothing like that 10, 15, or 20 degrees below normal push that we had last week. So everything being relative, it's definitely warmer this week than last. However, I still think over a good chunk of the Corn Belt, we're going to be seeing morning lows down in the mid-upper 30s, low 40s. It's going to be a slow move up in some of these soil temperatures. We've got a lot of moisture coming out of the Texas Panhandle through western Oklahoma into parts of southern Kansas. That low that's doing that looks like it wants to cross through the Tennessee Valley, maybe even just south of there, and keeps most of the precipitation this week just a little bit farther south. No reason to change that part of our thought process right now as we go forward. Now, we're going to keep an eye out for southern parts of the Corn Belt at midweek to see maybe a little bit of scattered light shower action. We're talking extreme southern Indiana, southern Illinois, Missouri. But generally speaking, we're going to go through most of this week with drier weather in the Corn Belt. As we move into the weekend, that's where things get a little interesting. A couple of weak little cool fronts trying to push in from the west and northwest. I can see some scattered showers here. Saturday, Sunday, nothing that has a lot of teeth to it. We're talking a third of an inch or less. Then as we go through next week early on, I'd say from Monday late through Tuesday, a good front comes through. Gives everybody probably a chance for a half an inch, maybe 2/3 in some spots. I'll put coverage there at about 80%. That's just a precursor, though, for another stronger system to work through later on next week. The 7th through the 8th and 9th, I'm looking for good rains across the entire Corn Belt, potentially anywhere from a half to 1.5 or 2 inches. It just depends. The GFS went wetter, trying to bring a secondary wave of action to that front. I think that's probably overdone, but I do think there's good moisture there. The long and short of it is, look, this week we don't see a lot of major problems. I think we can probably put together 5 days of decent weather everywhere. Then we're going to have to deal with some hit and miss stuff, so you might be able to extend that 6 or 7 days depending on where you're at. But just keep in mind, hit and miss stuff could be popping up. The big question, I think, will be temperature. We did see good rains over the weekend in a large part of the Corn Belt, and temperatures since have been cool, so we haven't pulled that out right away. Do we see wholesale planting activity take off as we go through the rest of today and tomorrow, or do we see it hold off until Wednesday in some spots? I think it just really depends on where you're at. Western areas definitely going at it faster than eastern areas right now. The longer-term forecast definitely is wetter. I'm concerned about a shift maybe back toward an active forecast pattern heading toward the 15th or so of May. I think a lot of whether that happens or not comes down to the system for the end of next week. Is it a pattern changer? Is it one that really moistens up the atmospheric profile again? And then we'll watch and see what happens from there on out. Still, even if we get better moisture coming in next week, the planting progress that happens this week has got to be seen as favorable for getting a good start to the growing season. In terms of cool air, yeah, we're staying below normal. I don't think just through this week, but on through early May, and I'm even going to try and move an argument forward that it could be mid-May before we really try and take things back close to normal. We'll see occasional pushes to the warm side across the Corn Belt in general, but I think on the whole we're going to be below normal. As you look at wheat areas, looking at hit and miss action until we get into early parts of May, then we've got another good drink coming there. And the deep south, dodging some areas of precipitation probably as we go through next week. We're going to see moisture move across the deep south here from now through, let's say, Thursday. And then you might get some windows of opportunity to dry things down a little bit more in there, becoming more of an active pattern, or I should say a normal active pattern, where you get something to come through but have drier stretches in between. So not a lot of change, very similar to what we were thinking in our morning write-up this morning. Everybody ought to be going hot and heavy a little bit later this week. If you've got any questions on the weather, give us a call at Allendale. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.